Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. It's great to have you with us today. The Rising Generation exists to inspire and equip Christian leaders from all walks of life, from all around the world, to fulfill their God-given potential. By hearing these interviews with established, internationally recognized leaders, we hope you'll be inspired to connect the dots between where you are now and where it is God has called you to be. Now, to receive notifications about future episodes, simply subscribe to our podcast show by either on iTunes if you're on Apple, or on Stitcher, the Stitcher app if you're on Android. You can find out how to do that just by going to our webpage at www.errollawson.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones. Hopefully they will also benefit from the content. Guys, thanks for listening. Before we go into today's show, here's some news for you. Hey guys, how you doing? It's Errol here. Hope you're doing great today. Before we go into our interview today, I want to give you just a bit of a heads up on our Rising Generation campaign that started on the 1st of October. Now, if you're not aware already, we've been doing these interviews now. We've taken some of the nuggets from the interviews and put them into a fantastic book, a resource called The Rising Generation, which is an amazing resource for emerging leaders, established leaders that will help you to step into your biggest challenges and become the leader that God has designed you to be. Now, the way the campaign works is this. Our goal is to get 1,000 pre-orders of the book between now and the end of October, and all the profits from the campaign are going to go towards our work in Africa, in Ghana. We're working with young people and giving them leadership training and soft skills training and even more. And so for the last 15 years, I've been working as a leadership coach, a consultant, working in education and in business. You can check out my website for more information. I'm a John Maxwell trained coach, speaker, and trainer. My appeal to you today is this. I want to offer my services to you, to your church, to your business, to your organization, to you as an individual in return for your support for this campaign. Let me give you an example of some of the packages that I'm offering to you. If you were to pre-order 150 copies of the Rising Generation book for your team, for your organization, for your church, or for your business, in return, I would offer you firstly a 90-minute live keynote address on a leadership topic of your choice, along with a Q&A for your organization or team. I'd also offer you a one-day leadership workshop for your team or organization, again on a leadership topic of your choice. And also, in addition to that, give you a free half-day one-to-one or group coaching session, again for yourself as a leader or for your core team or for your wider team on a leadership topic of your choice, all in return for your contribution, which is a $5,000 contribution. You're going to get $8,900 worth of value for your investment, and all the profit goes to the work in Ghana. How awesome is that? And there's similar packages. There's so many offers I've got. Another option is the $1,500 package, which for your $1,500 contribution, you'll get 20 copies of the book for your team or organization. And also a one-day leadership workshop with myself, again for your team, your organization. I'll come in and train your team on a leadership topic of your choice. How amazing is that? So much value. And there are many more offers in line with your budget, what you're able to invest. I want to reach out to you guys. Go and check out the website to make this campaign a success. We really need your support. I'm banking on you. So please share this with your friends and help us to spread the word. We appreciate you. God bless you. Enjoy today's episode. My special guest today is Andrew Priestley. Andrew's an award-winning business coach. He teaches ambitious SMEs how to run their businesses more intentionally so that results that they really want show up bigger and sooner, and they create the unique lifestyle, genuine lifestyle business that they really want. Andrew, thank you for joining me today, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Glad to have you, man. Glad to have you. Andrew, first, before we start, please take a moment to fill in any gaps there in your biography and give us a glimpse to what you're up to in the world right now.
Well, as you said in the introduction there, I'm a business coach. I'm qualified in industrial and organisational psychology. Mm-hmm. And when I went to university, I was thinking, do I do an MBA or do I do psychology? And a good friend of mine who was at Macquarie University in New South Wales, Sydney, Australia, said, do you like numbers or do you like people? And I said, I love people. He said, I think you'd probably get more value out of doing the psychology route, which is what I ended up doing.
Awesome.
But I didn't work in the clinical space, Errol, doing dysfunctions and clinical issues. I work in industrial and organisational, which is really about peak performance, about modifying behaviour, about getting the best out of people.
Awesome. So I know you're doing a lot of coaching now internationally. How did you get into coaching? Like what was that transition story? How did it begin?
Well, yeah, it was funny because originally I trained as a school teacher, right?
Okay.
So I went to university. I was really interested in how kids read. And my parents thought I'd make a good teacher, so I went off and did a university degree in teaching. And while I was at university, I was working on the student newspaper. And when I graduated, I got married. And in our spare time, my wife is a journalist. The two of us, we started a newspaper. It was a health newspaper, believe it or not. And then we did a surfing newspaper. And after about 10 years of teaching, I was given long service leave. And I thought, I want to do an entertainment newspaper on my long service leave. Dumb mistake, big mistake. Anyway, we started this newspaper. It was incredibly successful. But, Errol, I got to tell you, it just about near killed me. I was working 14 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week. It nearly destroyed my home life. It nearly destroyed my health. It was successful on paper, and anyone looking on the outside would have said really, really super successful, but made it damn near killed me. It was just unbelievable. So I shut it down, and I started a little business, a little marketing agency, and that was quite successful. And then I got headhunted into a larger agency as a bit of a turnaround specialist, and mate, I just made friends with people, and usually over a coffee, people would start talking about their problems, and I knew what not to do because I'd had a business that was successful, but also a monster. And a friend of mine said, I think you'd make a good business coach. And on the back of that, after a lot of thought, I left my well-paid marketing job and trained as a business coach. And that's how I got into business coaching.
Wow. And was there like a turning point for you on your leadership journey as a leader in business, leader of yourself also? Like, was there a turning point where maybe you were heading in one direction and something happened, an epiphany of some sort, and you headed off into a different direction?
Well, yeah, there is a bit of a story here because it's well spotted what you're saying there, Errol, because I thought it was all about the money, right, about making lots of money and being successful and in that sense. And, there's nothing wrong with commercial success. There really isn't. But my first challenge as a business coach was to find clients,
right,
which I found. And then my second challenge was actually to find high-paying clients because I didn't just want to make the same money that I had in a job. I may as well have stayed in a job, right?
Right.
I want to do a lot better than that. And so I started looking for higher paying clients, and you know what? I actually found a couple. And I'm in this session with this guy called Gary, and Gary was the CEO of a very large skincare company. And we're in our second session, about 40 minutes into it, and Gary looks at me directly and he said, can I stop you, Andrew? And I thought, what's he going to say next? And he said, look, I'm not getting any value from this coaching.
Wow.
And I feel embarrassed. My heart starts racing. I'm sweating. You know that thing when you can feel the sweat running down your shirt and your arm. I honestly sort of couldn't think of anything to say back to him. When you go blank. And anyway, I find some way to cut the session short. And at that point, I crawled off feeling I was really gutted and demoralised. Right,
it's a big turning point for you.
Oh, it was, yeah. It's because here I am thinking I'm pretty good at this. I'm a really good coach, but here's a guy saying I'm not getting any value from it. So I feel like this real fraud and failure. So on my way home, I'm thinking this is terrible. I'm hopeless at this. I should quit. I should go and get a job. What was I even thinking that I could coach other people? Anyway, so I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and I stopped thinking about myself for a moment. I started thinking about Gary, and I started thinking about why wasn't Gary getting any value from the coaching, right? And then I had this insight, and my insight was it was a breakthrough moment. Like I don't know enough about my client. I don't know enough about Gary, and in that moment, I immediately felt relieved, and then I started to feel excited because I know now what to do. So I went back to my psych degree training, and I started to find everything I could about benchmarking and profiling. And the decision that I made was I'm going to ask Gary much better questions. I'm going to listen to him and focus on what matters to him. And so I rang him up, and I went back to see him the next day, and he was sort of a bit concerned about what I was going to say to him. And I said, look, Gary, straight up, I'm not getting any value either, to tell you the truth, and I want to try something different with you. And he said, yeah, okay. He said, well, I don't really want to cancel the coaching because I like you, and but I just want to get value in it, and that's fair enough. Right? So anyway, that's what I did, and it worked really, really well. And the end result of that was that I went back and I developed an approach to leadership. And it's really interesting, Errol, because when I started coaching, leadership was really about you pick a role model like, Branson or Jack Welch or someone famous. And the way we thought about it back then was that success leaves clues, and these guys must have qualities and traits that we should copy, right? And that's how we were taught to coach people. So we came up with 12 qualities, and we coached them in those approach. But what I found is I was working in high-end compliance where on a good day, someone gets injured. On a bad day, someone dies, right? So I was working in mining, and I was working in aviation and in critical care, for example, right? I'm coaching people in the management teams there. And
different playing field.
Oh, totally, yeah. And I realised Errol, is that those leaders don't have time when something's happening and they're under pressure. They don't have time to go back to their bookshelf and find Jack Welch's autobiography and flip through it and find out what Jack would do. Right? And in working with Gary, I realised I was trying to get him to be someone he's not. Right? I'm trying to get him to. I'm trying to make him shoehorn him into being. Someone famous or someone he's not meant to be, right? And this is something I've found that in my leadership approach is a lot of times leaders are trying to be something they're actually not. And so as a result of all this work, I hit on this idea that first I'm going to find out as much about my client as I possibly can. I'm going to ask them, how did you start this business? How did you get into it? What are your frustrations? What are the things that matter to you most? What are your values? What do you want? And how did it end? Well, Gary continued coaching, and he achieved a dramatic uplift in his personal, professional, and commercial game. So
what do you reckon the lesson is there for a young leader, emerging leader, or someone kind of trying to break through it now? What's the lesson for them in that story, do you think?
I think the lesson is that you've certainly got to do your research. You've got to talk to a lot of people and read a lot of people and get good influences, most certainly. But at some point, you've got to ask yourself, I've understood this, but what does that mean to me? What does that mean? How am I going to be different? Because the thing I find is particularly in high-end compliance, Errol, the leaders can't afford to try and copy someone else. They've actually got to do something that feels natural and feels intuitive to them.
Yeah.
And that's the leadership style that I've developed. That's the leadership coaching that I now take my leaders through, and they get massive success out of it. Because they're not trying to be like someone else. They're actually trying to work out what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are their values, what's important to them.
It's great, Andrew, man. And what's been your biggest challenge in leadership so far?
My biggest challenge on a business level has been scaling the business. Right? But the biggest challenge I had as a coach was actually just coming to the conclusion that there are people out there more successful than me. For example, Gary had the Lexus, he had the riverfront home, he had the big home, he had the big wage, and I was thinking, who am I to coach this guy? And I meet with a lot of young people who say, well, who am I to start my own business, or who am I to put my hand up and try a big challenge because there are more successful people? I'd say that the reason that you should try is because you are young and you're energetic and you've got ideas. You shouldn't shy away from that, you know.
It's good. It's good, man.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
Obviously now you've been coaching a while and you're experiencing this. How's your definition of success changed? How do you now define success?
I think success changes, and we know this from the research that it changes from different ages. When you're very young, clearly you're trying to establish your career and also establish your income, and so your definition of success is usually around the measurement of your income. Right? But after a while, it then becomes in the quality of the relationships that you've got.
Right?
It moves to that. But my definition of success now is along the lines of that I'm genuinely living a good life and a good lifestyle based on my values and based on the goals that I've got around my values, if you know what I mean. So I think what underpins success for me right now is I don't care whether you're starting out or whether you've been in business a long time. It's that approach to stewardship. You know what stewardship is, don't you?
Yeah. It's good.
Right? Can someone trust you with their business? Can someone trust you with their deepest secrets? Can someone trust you to do the job well, no matter what job you do? Right? And when I first started out, when I was 18, for example, I worked in a restaurant, and I did everything from cleaning toilets to cleaning greasy pit trays and stuff like that, right through to silver service. And my goal was to be good at whatever job I was given, and so that my boss could rely on me, for example. And I think that hasn't left me. That's never left me. So my definition of success is definitely about personal, professional, and commercial success as it's measured. But I think it's underpinned by what I value and what sort of impact I want to make on people.
And what does the first 90 minutes of your day typically look like?
Well, mate, I'm very lucky because I made a decision years ago that my health was a high priority. I can't do what I do without good energy, and I find a lot of people I work with just don't have they're knocking on an empty tank. They don't have the energy to do what they want to do. So the first 90 minutes of my day is walking or exercising. It might be time spent reading, stuff that's inspirational, or listening to inspirational tapes or CDs or MP3s. But definitely it's get out and move. I put my iPod on, I get out and I go walking, I go running, I take the dogs, but I spend time on my health, mate.
And any of the key habits that have helped you along the way?
Key habit. A key habit would be, this is probably an old one, but being careful about what comes out of my mouth. If I say yes, I mean yes, and yes doesn't mean no or maybe. And sometimes people agree to stuff that they later thought they should have said, can I think about it?
It's good.
So that's a pretty key habit, just being careful about what I promise people.
And what's the biggest weakness as a leader?
The biggest weakness I had when I started my own business, and also the one I see with a lot of people, is trying to please everybody, trying to help everybody, trying to be all things to everybody. Right. And sometimes you can't. And and what I found is getting clear on where you can help people. And if you can't help them, just acknowledge your limitations and say, look, I'd love to help you, but that's not me. That's good. So that's been a big weakness.
And biggest strength?
That's one I've had to work on.
Biggest strength?
I think my biggest strength as a coach is there's a philosophy in coaching which is that you've got to listen to people, which is true, and you should enable that person to think for themselves and work out the problem, which is true. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, Errol, people the more they talk about something, they're more confused. Right. And sometimes it's because they're not clear on their values and they're not clear on their direction, they're not clear on their skills or experience, and talking about it makes them more confused. So my biggest strength, I hate to say it, is I can be very clear and very direct with people. If I see them make a mistake, I'll tell them. Okay.
And if you think back to the beginning of your leadership journey, what if anything was holding you back?
In terms of leadership, my confusion about what a leader is. And I now feel that leadership is, if you're in charge of a result, you're a leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, and a good example of that is if you think of an orchestra, and I don't know if you've been and seen an orchestra play, but sometimes, everyone takes their lead from the lead violinist, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes the lead violinist forgets where they are, and I've watched a concert where the second violinist or the cello's picked it up, or the flautist has picked it up, or the trumpeter picked it up. So the leadership is you lead from wherever you sit, but I believe you lead from wherever you stand. If you see that there's a need and you can get a result, that makes you a leader. And I don't care what age you are or what position you are in a company. If you can see that there's a need, that something needs doing, that makes you a leader.
It's great. It's great. And who have been your most significant mentors along your leadership journey?
There's three types. There's one of my mentors was who's been really significant in my life, was someone who's the hardest on me, because we tend to look for people who give us approval and we get along with. But Jeff was the guy who had very high standards, and he was incredibly tough on me. Sometimes I would go home and I'd have tears of frustration. Wow, right? That's good. My friend Jock, who was, again, very high standards, and he just expected the best from me. Yeah. And sometimes, you've got to get around people who do expect the best from you, and sometimes what we do is we tend to gravitate to people who give us a soft and easy ride. But sometimes, there's an old saying in Japan is, I'd never have a sword that has never been tested in the fire. So my mentors were tough, I think.
Okay. So Jeff, Jock, anybody else?
There was a guy called Vac, and Vac was a very clever, experienced man. So the second category is someone who's had a lot of experience in the area that I want to work in. Okay. And that was Vac. And I think my third area was, I was very lucky to, there was another guy called Jeff who was a really good Christian mentor of mine who really gave me the inside track on combining your faith with your business.
What was the best piece of advice these guys have given you each? Start from the last one then. What's the best piece of advice they've given you, each of them?
Best piece of advice is, what do you stand for? What are your values? Work out your values. With my kids, for example, particularly around things like relationships, what sort of relationship do you want to be in? What do you value in a partner? What do you value in a business partner? What do you value in a customer? What is it that you value in your own business? What do you value about yourself? Work out your values. It's very hard to deliver a high standard if you don't know what you value.
Yeah. That's good. And we're almost done now. What's the best? What's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
Right now, it's a great question. It's actually I'm at the stage of life where most of the people that I coach, Errol, they have issues around money because, they don't have a good relationship with money. In fact, in the UK and in the US, most young professionals spend 130% of their weekly wage, and a lot of that is on credit. And 18 to 25s are the most likely to enter a chronic cycle of debt. And I'm really worried about this because, a lot of young people have gone to university and they're carrying university debt, and they think that they've got to carry that forever. A couple of years back, I wrote a book called The Money Chimp, and I created a training around that, which was run out at a mate of mine who was a pastor at a church asked me to run the program for a bunch of young people there. And I taught them 10 money skills. And 2 of them we know really well, earning money and spending money. But I taught them the other 8. And it was fascinating because in 3 months, most of them were debt-free within 3 months. That's great. That's good stewardship around money. So I'm really fired up about that. I don't want young professionals to walk into just debt problems and money problems, simply because they don't make that a search where there's good books out there. There's a lot of good, really information out there.
So how do we find out about that book? Where can we find out more about you and the book and any other services that you offer?
Yeah, well, The Money Chimp you can find on Amazon. It's called The Money Chimp. Mm-hmm. It's a paperback. It's available on Amazon. Andrew Priestley. So if you Google search The Money Chimp or Andrew Priestley, you can also do the Money Chimp test, which is www.themoneychimp.net. You can find out about that, or you can Google me at andrewpriestley.com. That's how you can find out about the coaching. But particularly, I would urge anyone listening to this, and particularly this age group, that is a book that you should read over and over, because I've seen it just change lives.
It's great. It's awesome. Guys, go and check it out. We'll have the links in the show notes here for you. Check out Andrew's website. Check out Andrew's books on Amazon. Google him. Got some the free tests there. You can go and tap into that and just glean from Andrew's wisdom. I've had coaching personally myself with Andrew over the last couple of years or so, and it's great insight, very direct, will help you get that clarity you need if you're looking for a great business coach right now. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today, man.
Good, mate. Thank you very much. And I just want to say I really appreciate the work that you're doing in reaching out to people this way, getting the speakers and the calibre of speakers that you've got, and making that effort, because, 20 minutes can change someone's life.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol at errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around the leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away. We'll get you booked in. It's Errol at errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes. Give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.